Welcome to Season 2 of the Cultural Cultivators podcast by Balay Kreative and Cultivate Labs, where we delve into various aspects of film culture and speak with leaders, artists, and creators who are shaping and pushing the boundaries of their respective fields. Today, we continue to spotlight some of our favorite Cultivate Labs kapwa and community members. So join us as we cultivate a greater appreciation for the beauty and complexity of the film experience. Follow us on all social media platforms at Balay Kreative or on Instagram at cultural.cultivators. Creative and Cultivators is both with a K. ChiChai is an artist, educator, and community gatherer born and raised in occupied Ohlone land, also known as the San Francisco Bay Area. Whether teaching or creating, her work is intersectional in its roots to nature, feminism, and the dismantling of colonial mindsets. Through fashion design, murals, and mixed media, ChiChai aims to honor indigenous craftsmanship, the matriarch that raised her, and Mama Earth. As a former Balay Kreative grantee and resident artist, her murals adorn buildings and steps all over the SOMA Pilipinas Cultural Heritage District. In this conversation, ChiChai reflects on time spent as a resident artist at the Fish Factory Creative Center, located in a remote village in the East Fjords of Iceland.
So a lot of people ask me, why didn't apply for residencies in more tropical areas? Because my work, you'll see a lot of influence from tropical areas. So yes, of course, the Philippines, but also my mom is in Hawaii. So a lot of connections there. But that's exactly why I wanted Iceland. I know that the connections I have to tropical islands is infinite. I feel it already. I'm very aware of that. But can I challenge myself to create in somewhere completely different? Still in island country, but instead in the Arctic Circle. And I remember I was staring into the mountains and the water and being can I still feel connected to this part of Mama Earth, even though she's so different? And there was kind of this weird hunch of no shit, fool. Of course you can. And next thing you know, I'm creating all these things inspired by her.
Also in this conversation, ChiChai talks about the origins of her clothing brand, Empire in the Air, exploring fashion as identity with the show Turnout for Turno, and her most recent mural work in San Francisco's Yerba Buena Gardens. You can follow ChiChai on Instagram at chichai.intheair and read more about her work at chi-chai.co. Thank you for coming into the studio, ChiChai. Welcome back home. For those that don't know, ChiChai was one of our first resident artists at Balay. Yeah. It was you, Christine, and VCAP's Vivian. We're the trio Pinays, powerful Pinays, my first month here at Balay.
Yeah, when I got into Balay, it was literally just Sierra, Ramon, and Christian, and then me and V. And it was so cold.
Still cold.
I know. But it was empty. Yeah, and then Christine came, so it was just us for a long time.
Before we officially start, I always ask this first question. Is there an ancestor that's crossed over that you like to call into the space to ground us in the conversation today?
I actually just designed a mural where there's a Muni bus times jeepney hybrid, and every single window has a different Pinay from here, from San Francisco, that had crossed over, and they all had contributed to our fight here, but also the arts here. So from Victoria Manalo Draves to Pasita Abad, and I would love to call on that energy into this space.
Yes. Yeah. Love that. That's the first time people call those women in.
Oh,
yeah. It's exciting. All right. Speaking of your art, you are a muralist, you're an artist, you're a fashion designer. But I want to go back to like the origin of ChiChai. What was your first exhibit like compared to this most recent one that you just did?
It's kind of crazy because I said that my first show was in the Mission 2022, but that was actually the first show that I didn't produce like for myself or for other people. Some show that actually invited me to like do my own thing. So that was cool. I think that very first show, I was like, let's just have fun with it. Let's just like watercolor and experiment. It was a lot more loose. But with my most recent show at SOMA last year with Reroot, that one was it was kind of intimidating to put out because I allowed myself to be super vulnerable with those pieces. The curator, Rebecca Flores, they actually challenged me to combine my mural style with fashion design. And of course, you know, with all the different mediums that I put, I think of our people, our community, and the stories that we tell. So having to combine both, it was like extra intense, but I think it's still my strongest body of work that I'm really proud to have put out.
Yeah, and some of those pieces are on display at KQED, correct?
Yeah, they're on display at KQED, and it's actually the last pieces I even created here at Balay, which is super full circle. I was creating it in this corner from sewing everything all the way to painting everything. And then even the photo shoots that I did were all just like at the BART station right here or even at Embarcadero.
What was your inspiration for those pieces?
Ooh, so I called the collection Reroot, and it asked questions of like, for us in the diaspora, who and what place can we actually claim we are rooted to? Just the kind of the different nuances that come with being in the diaspora, but also a lot of people don't know that my mom's actually adopted by her half-sisters, and then I'm also raised by a single mom, so it's like there's that extra layer for me personally of like, who can I root to in a family setting too? Like, what are the ancestors that I can call to on top of like being a Philem? Just like all this confusion that I think a lot of us can relate to.
Real quick, shout out to our single mamas out there.
Yo, my mom got her master's out here while I was in kindergarten. Like, I constantly think about how my mom was raised by no parents and then she raised me on her own. Like, that's fucking crazy. But that's why all my artwork centers around women and embodying women as higher beings and all that, because like, I mean, I just said who raised me, right?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like the world just doesn't understand about mothers or appreciate, on top of that, being single and doing it by yourself. Like,
yeah, and not having had her own mom as an example. Like, I really don't know how she did it. And another thing with my artwork too, so there's that layer of our own generational trauma, but also the trauma that comes from colonial mentality. So if anyone knows my mom, she's very famous for her kulot. She's very curly haired. But growing up, she was shamed for that. And then my hair is very big and wavy, and I also got shamed for that. So that's why also in my artwork, you'll see the hair is almost the landscapes for a lot of those pieces, showing that there's some ancestral connection. There's a higher connection with that.
Well, that kind of ties into one of my questions. So your master thesis was challenging Filipino colonial mentality through Philippine art, and it was awarded the most original thesis. So you also continue to teach art through a decolonized lens. Why do you think this work is so important to you, and why do you continue to do that, especially for this new generation?
Because I've seen that it's important, or I've even experienced myself the impact of it. Again, talking about my mom, like with all of the artwork with the big hair, I know that not just my mom, but other women who have felt shamed and not meeting the like European beauty standards, being able to see yourself and knowing that that narrative is by someone who is like you, there's so much power in that, right? You can feel that power that you have too. And I also think of, you know, when we're growing up, we didn't have any examples like that. Like the most Pinay example I had was, you know, someone will mention, oh, Lea Salonga sang that. I was like, but she didn't play a Filipina. Mm-hmm. She played a Vietnamese girl here. I guess, was she Princess Jasmine? Also,
yeah,
right? And Mulan. And I was like, but she's still not us. None of those narratives were for us or by us. And now we're in a place where not only are we being represented, we are taking hold of that narrative. You're seeing that empowerment more and more with the younger generation, which I super admire and sometimes envy that we had. And then in regards to teaching, so when I do my lesson plans, I always try to think of how can I incorporate Filipino or Filipino American history or culture into this lesson plan. So for example, I think next week I'm literally doing a portrait with Bessie Carmichael or Galing Bata students, and we're pulling inspiration from Pasita Abad because I want them to know that our work is worthy of being in such high institutions or being supported by like a plethora of people, you know? It's important that we hold power to our stories.
Yes. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Because we need the artists, but we also need the platform.
Yeah.
A lot of times the institutions are still not showing the artists. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I feel like just in the past couple of years, people have been showing like Carlos Villa, like you said, Christina Abad, and our local artists.
Yeah.
You know, at SF MoMA or the Asian Art Museum. But it took decades.
It's crazy that it's still like the first time, especially considering Filipinos have been in the Bay for how long?
Since the 1920s?
Yeah.
Like hundreds of years.
Like literally hundreds of years, and we're just getting this recognition. And that's why I think, you know, it's so important that we push on to this momentum. Like we cannot stop telling these stories, telling our stories, but also remembering those that had fought for our platform to even do so.
Yes, those that came before us. We are on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not that far from these ancestors that are here. Like, you know, when people talk about history, it seems like some mythical story from long ago. It's like, no. Like, we are still thriving because of our direct connection to them. Like, even us just having this conversation in Balay is proof of that too.
100%.
Yeah.
I often think, you know, I started the Ancestor Altars event, and it was 100% ancestor driven.
Yeah.
And when I think about like when people connect, like even right now as an example, I think it's not just us connecting. Mm-hmm. It's literally all our ancestors that are present here for us connecting with each other too.
Yeah.
And like chismissing.
They're having a barrio fiesta.
Yes, exactly. And like guiding the conversation in ways that like sometimes we don't even think about or are conscious of.
Yeah. No, it's crazy because, you know, when you get kind of just those different hunches or just that strong gut feelings, I'm like, that's not coming from out of nowhere. Like that has to be something looking out because most of the time that shit's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just like my Tumblr, God, no one find it. But like my Tumblr header, I think it said something like following my gut in everything that I do. And was it like 17-year-old me wrote that? But I just think of how true that is now. But just understanding our history and how community heavy our people are, I'm like, okay, there is something like actually tying into that gut feeling. There's a lot of guidance there that have brought us here.
It's like this combination of intuition, discernment, and ancestors.
Yeah.
How do you utilize that in your art, or do you at all?
I think I do sometimes too much. I would say I'm a very, very intuitive artist. So even with my murals, yeah, I'll have the like rough sketch design on my iPad or whatever, but I don't grid or use a projector or anything. I just kind of free flow with it and allow other things to come up as I go. One, I personally think it's funner. Like, I think if I were to grid stuff, I would get super stressed about the peculiarities of like, oh, this needs to be an inch higher, whatever. But for me, I like feeling directly connected into the process of the art making and just, again, kind of letting my body guide what needs to be added to it. I like being very intuitive driven. I just like to freestyle. And then even for fashion design, where it does require a lot more measuring and math and whatnot, sometimes I kind of just let it go in the process of like, you know, staring at it and seeing what I need to add as if it is a mural, just really feeling things out.
I actually wanted to ask you about your fashion. Empire in the Air. What inspired you to create a clothing brand, and how do you think your fashion brand has evolved?
For Empire in the Air, it's kind of a weird question because I'm kind of stepping away from it. I actually started Empire when I was 17. I was slaying t-shirts out of my dorm at San Jose State. I was selling shirts and hoodies and whatnot between classes because 17-year-old me already knew that I wanted to use my love for art and fashion for community-based work. So back in college, all the way into my late 20s, I was using Empire in the Air to put on events. So I was putting on like different vending events, different pop-up shops and galleries, and would always make sure that I would put on artists that didn't have gallery or retail representation. And we were doing that all the way until 2020. And that kind of like pushed my perspective of like, okay, I am turning 30 now.
Wow. 17 to 30. Wow.
Yeah. And it just kind of pushed me to think of like, is this still how I want to go about things? Because as much as I love everything that me and my friends did with Empire in the Air and how much we were able to build other artists up, it started to feel like I was losing myself a bit. You know, like I was putting all of these other projects first, but it didn't feel like it was a space where I could actually let my own personal art grow, you know? And so 2020 happened. We all know what happened with 2020. And that allowed some introspective, but coming out of, you know, things getting better from COVID, more large-scale mural work came to place. And it almost seemed like the right transition of like, okay, maybe I don't do streetwear all the time now. Like maybe I do explore my own work as like an individual artist. And so with murals then came like, okay, but I still miss fashion and design. Like I can't just drop it. And so that's why you'll see me dropping things like here and there. Like for example, the coffee utility vest or like the top I'm wearing for certain shows. So now I'm just doing it when I feel like it, which is hella nice. And it's slow fashion now. You know, like I'm not just producing like a couple hundred t-shirts and who knows where it ends up truly, right? So now I'm working in mostly upcycled goods and reworking it and still, you know, telling my truth through fashion.
Love. It's intentional fashion.
Yes, intentional and slow. Very, very slow because it's just me.
You should see ChiChai, her at her sewing machine. She's like so focused.
And like not in the best mood. Not in the best mood. But also, the show that we had turn out for Turno. So Seer was one of the lead designers with me. He's one of the Balay artists still.
Shout out to Seer in the back right now.
Seer saves the day. And so we had that fashion show in March 2023, so just last year. And I think that also helped me push what can I actually do? Because we were telling the story of Imelda Marcos's glamour to destruction. And I'm used to making everyday wear. But next thing you know, I'm making a turno that incorporates like 30 shoes hanging off of it. Yeah, so I think being able to work with other artists in fashion design had definitely helped push what I thought my limitations were creatively, and also just like I didn't know I knew how to do that.
That was so impressive. You guys churned that out in, what was the time frame?
Not enough.
Yeah.
It was like less than 6 months.
It was insane.
Yeah.
And how many looks did you end up designing and creating?
At least 4 or 5. At least.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they were crazy.
They were like crazy turnos.
Yeah. Like I had one that she's supposed to embody how Imelda sees herself as like the sun, and it required triangles of sequence, but that still needed a lining. So we sewed at least like 200 triangles for that one outfit. My bad.
I remember seeing all the sequins on the floor.
We like made a joke that we're actually coming out with a burlesque show. It's all the political stuff. That's a lie. It's a burlesque show.
What I loved about it too, you all used people of different shapes, different genders, different, backgrounds. It wasn't just like the typical
like A model.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we worked with the Granny Cart Gangsters. So, it was already an honor to just work with the Granny Carts, who are very legendary here in Soma. But they made those pieces come to life. For real, for real. Like, yeah, we made the clothes, but they put the movement into it. And on top of that, all of our leads for each section were drag queens, were Pinay, Pinax drag queens out here, which gave it a like even higher level of storytelling that I still can't believe we did all of that.
I wish y'all could do it again.
Us too.
It was so dope to experience.
That was only like half of what we wanted to do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So manifesting.
I was just going to say bigger grants.
We will do the full show eventually.
Bigger budget for this. All right. I want to also ask about your public art, because I feel like this is the era you're in right now.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't go down any street downtown without hitting a ChiChai mural in San Francisco. Congratulations.
Thank you. We had a block party yesterday for Pagsasama Sama, which is my first 2-story building. Before that, my largest mural was 750 square feet, and this one is 2,100 square feet. So almost triple my biggest mural. Yeah, and what was so precious with the block party was they had all the generations be part of the celebration. So extra context, this mural and the mural next to it, which is by Cici Carpio and Frankie Gamez, that corner, or I guess Rush Street, it's going to be considered the gateway to SOMA Pilipinas, and that's why we wanted to extra celebrate. And shout out to the Pinay artists for making it happen. It feels so special to be alongside Frankie and Cici and create that space. But we had the seniors, the lolas of the community perform. We had the Galing Bata perform, as well as the moms of West Bay. It was so special.
How did you develop your style as a muralist?
Ooh, Just growing up in the Bay, my style, whether it's with illustration or fashion, has always been hella Bay. I think so. Like, for example, my mom's closest cousin lives off Masonic in Haight, so we grew up going there every weekend. And, that area is filled with murals, filled with streetwear. And streetwear is also just, it's like murals, but on t-shirt, like very illustration heavy. So I think those were my very early inspirations. But, learning about our history and pre-colonial history and also embracing my femininity more, I wanted to tie that all in of like, okay, it's urban art, but there's also a nature-esque part of it because I want to bring in that pre-colonial power to it too. Yeah, so I think that's the combination. And oh my God, I had an epiphany because sometimes I get kind of shy when people ask like what kind of art I do. And I'm like, a muralist and fashion designer. And usually their heads are like, huh? Like, what? And I realized that both are not only public art, but both are also functional art. So if you were to look into the history of artwork in the Philippines, all of it had some sort of function to it. They all had a functional purpose, whether it was like the bulul, so the wooden sculpture that was used to protect the rice crops, or how all of our weavings have different purposes to it. And then I realized like, oh my God, fashion is a functional art piece. And then also murals are also functional because they're contributing to the neighborhood. And I was like, oh shit, I think like that's not a coincidence. Yeah, back to that ancestral talk from earlier.
It's connecting all the dots.
Yeah.
That's so dope.
Yeah, I realized that when I was in Iceland.
So I want to talk about Iceland. You're always applying for residencies and grants. So to finally get one, especially in Iceland, that's a huge freaking deal. So congratulations.
Thank you.
How was that experience? And how did it transform or even validate you as an artist?
Oh, I needed it. I hella needed it. I think everyone knows that I'm hella busy. I hate that that's what I'm known for. I truly do. I'm working on it. Because that's part of the artist's life is we're trying to balance all these multiple projects because, the reality is I don't know if I'll have work next month, right? I don't know if I'll have work next week. So it's a constant hustle on top of, other things that I'm trying to give space to. But this was my first time really carving out this much time and energy for me, which is really crazy to say. I think like when I went to Iceland, I actually had the full intention of just fine-tuning my art fundamentals. Like, okay, I'll just sketch and like practice drawing, blah, blah, blah. But instead I came out with a whole fashion collection. It didn't happen. Something else happened. And I realized I hadn't made anything for myself for fun, like not for a show, not for some sort of exhibit in over 2 years at that point. Yeah. And so having gone onto this residency that only had 100 people in the village, only 7 other artists, just this truly quiet, calm, and supportive space, I realized that I know how good it feels to prioritize myself and prioritize the care that's needed in order to create things that I enjoy. And I want to figure out how to keep holding on to that for sure. Of course, it's easier said than done. Like literally when I came back from Iceland, the day after I started another mural and I was like, ChiChai, we went over this. Like, this is exactly what you're not supposed to do. Yeah, so I'm trying. Again, these were all commitments pre-Iceland, but now I think I'm I've gotten to a point in my art career, just a privileged place where I can start controlling the pace a bit more. And just having that residency like really allowed me to kind of check myself with my priorities for not just like physical health, but like overall well-being. Like, how am I supposed to create if I'm burnt out all the time? Ugh. I'm working on it.
That part.
Yeah.
I think as artists, we forget that. It's so easy to forget.
Yeah.
Unless you take time to do a residency like Iceland. And also just the nature in Iceland.
Yeah. Oh my God. Because we were in a fjord.
Wow.
We were in a freaking fjord, which is like a fun word to say. Where we were in the fjord, the studios were literally next to the water. Like, we had our own little harbor into the water. And I had my own favorite spot, which was the tide pools. And it's funny because, you know, the first 2 weeks, it was like on and off snowstorms. But then right when sun came out, we're like, oh my God, we could wear a t-shirt because it went from 25 degrees to 40. You know, just those little things, like being in such an extreme environment, you start to get a little bit more appreciative of those things, such as sunshine. So a lot of people ask me, like, why didn't apply for residencies in more tropical areas, you know, because my work, you'll see a lot of influence from tropical areas. So yes, of course, the Philippines, but also my mom is in Hawaii. So a lot of connections there. But that's exactly why I wanted Iceland. I know that the connections I have to tropical islands is infinite. Like, I feel it already. I'm very aware of that. But can I challenge myself to create in somewhere completely different? Still in island country, but instead in the Arctic Circle. And I remember I was like staring into the mountains and the water and being like, can I still feel connected to this part of Mama Earth, even though she's so different? And there was kind of this weird hunch of like, no shit, fool. Like, of course you can. And next thing you know, I'm creating like all these things inspired by her. Like, I shouldn't have doubted it.
Yeah, you see that in the work that came out from it.
Yeah. Like, one of the pieces I have at between, it's a light blue collared shirt and it had embroidered like the fjord to it. And it's a bangka at the end. Yeah, to kind of show that connection. I think I embroidered for like 20 hours total because it's all by hand. Yeah. Making the shirt took like a day, but then the actual embroidery took like 1 week.
People don't understand.
No, I don't have an embroidery machine, but see you.
Do you have any upcoming collaborations with any notable Filipino artists?
Let me think. I am having a event with Sarap Shop soon. We literally set the date yesterday, so if it is ready by then, it is July 19th. I'll let you know if we have to scratch that out. July 19th. So I created the mural, the inside of Sarap Shop, and we're going to come out with some merch based off of the characters, and we're going to have a pop-up shop for it. And then other exciting things is that me, V, and Christine currently have artwork at the KQED headquarters, which is really exciting, especially because on July 31st, there's going to be an event full of other dope-ass Pinay performance artists, and it'll also be a reception for the three of us.
Speaking of, Granny Cart Gangstas is going to be performing, and also a new Balay resident artist, Solitaire from Buhay Gardens. So, full circle moment.
It's exciting. We're
Come
taking over.
July 31st, 7 p.m. at KQED headquarters. And it'll also be streamed live.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. So you don't have an excuse to not.
Yeah. So you can just watch from the comfort of your home.
Yeah. And then not exactly a collab, but if you go to Yerba Buena Gardens on 4th Street between, Mission and Howard, you'll see a lineup of murals, and I am going to be one of them. So right now, everyone knows that like Mel and DJs is up there, but Dre is the new one as of this week, and then I'm also being added right now too.
Nice. Yeah. I just saw the sketches. He sent it in our Slack channel. Yeah. I was like, did you do this? He's like, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to be that very far corner on Howard across from the T station. I'm the only Pinay though.
Hey.
I know. I was like, damn, it's a Tito club.
I know.
I'm just kidding. Again, Dre, I'm so sorry. So sorry.
It's okay. I just got that Tito energy now. What was your inspiration?
So that one, I was thinking of like, okay, I love all of these murals that we have up already. They shout out to different aspects of Philippine culture and things that the diaspora has brought here. But I wanted to celebrate us here. You know, I wanted to celebrate the Pinays here and what have we done here. You know, trying to switch up the narrative a little bit, but also really highlight the moves that we've made here. So there is a part where it's a Muni and jeepney hybrid, and each window are going to be different Pinay ancestors in it. And then throughout it are different influences pulled from me. I actually talked to some of their family members and friends too to get extra insight. So other aspects of the mural pulled some stuff from those conversations because I really wanted to make it specific to the Pinay experience here in the Bay and San Francisco more specifically. I even put in some iHotel Easter eggs. So you know how there's these beautiful protest photos of people linking arms to protect iHotel. I directly traced the arms linking, and that's going up the stairs is the arms linking. And I also hid the grid of old Filipino town. If you know, you know. But even if you're still learning about our history here in San Francisco, I think you'll be able to feel that sense of connection and hopefully want to learn more about it. But my goal is to come out with a zine to tie into the mural so that people can get that extra context, especially with all the ancestors that are specifically included in it. So you'll know which one are my stairs because it's the linking arms. Like, it's funny because I was actually going to do like the rice terraces because it links, but DJ literally has the rice terraces next to me. I was like, okay, I can't do that. What can I do where it's still like ascending, but still powerful? It's like, wait, I wanted it to be about us here. And so I dove into like SFPL like records and everything. Like I went through historical books, and when I saw a picture of the iHotel linked arms, I was like, that's it.
We love a teacher researching for her artwork. That's so
and like
dope.
Conducting interviews.
That's so dope. Pinays, we do the most. But like,
true.
it's so thorough.
I was really trying my best to like do all my checks and balances, you know, because when we're doing work that is, you know, trying to represent like historical legacies, it can go wrong. It can go wrong. Let's be real. So I really, really like tried my best, and I was talking to my husband about it, that this upcoming mural, I think I really gave like my whole being into it. So I hope everyone can see it and enjoy it soon.
I love that. I say that all the time on this podcast, but seriously, it's like a combination of like physical, logical research, but also like you said, this intuitive guide from the ancestors.
Yeah, for real. I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning. Like I had an idea, like my first idea was just like, it would be sick if there was a muni that made a baby with a jeepney. Like I was like, that would be cool, and like some Pinays on it. But after that, it just expanded into this. Yeah. So yeah, that whole thing is all intuitive. So with the Yerba Buena Gardens mural, that one is digitally produced and then they fabricated it. So I have another mural coming up that is with the Children's Creativity Museum. Yeah, and I believe we're doing a virtual walking tour celebration on July 21st. And I am one of the virtual muralists. So my mural, it's a little out of SOMA. It's in Union Square behind the Apple building. On top of Ruth Asawa's sculpture will be projected my mural through the Creativity app.
That's sick.
Yeah.
It's like augmented reality.
Yeah. So like if you've played Pokemon Go and it looks like, it's like, oh, Pikachu's right here. It's like that, but it's murals.
It's art.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's so many projects.
Yeah.
Wow. Still staying busy. Finding that balance.
I'm trying.
We're finding the balance. Love it. Last question. What are you currently geeking over? And it could be anything.
Well, I just came back from New York and I was geeking over all of the mosaic art in the subway stations. My husband was getting annoyed because we're like trying to catch a train. I was like, but look at him, like taking pictures. But there was a whole, I think it was at the Times Square station inside. It's a ceramic piece of all Nick Cave's fashion design.
Oh, nice.
And I'm still thinking about it. Like I've been back for 2 days now and I'm still geeking over, well, one, just seeing how beautiful the mosaics are, but also seeing like fashion design intertwined into that. Like, oh man, who knows? Will I tap into mosaics after this? But yeah, so still functional art. That's public art. Mosaics are a form of murals. And then I saw fashion design. Yeah, just geeking out over there.
When you said that, I also thought about Priscilla Bod.
Yeah.
She did a lot of mosaics in her art.
I know. Priscilla Bod, okay, maybe I'll geek out about her too. She's actually my favorite artist of all time, which is like a really, really big statement. If you know her work, you'll see a little piece of it in the Yerba Buena Gardens one too. I remember when her show got put up at the MoMA, I got a membership just so I could go like multiple times.
Nice.
Yeah, so shout out to the ancestors in the arts also.
All right. Well, thank you so much, ChiChai, for being here. Thanks for sharing your energy, your art with us. We're so proud. I'm so proud of you and all the work you continue to do for the community. People can say it's a challenge being a community artist, but you make it seem like it's effortless.
Thank you. It's not, but for real, like the community gives back, like just, the connection with like the kids or even a passerby of a mural saying like how much this means to them, like that fuels me every single time to just keep going.
I think one of the biggest takeaways for me was the experience of the residency in Iceland and how transformative it was for ChiChai. It allowed her to prioritize herself and her creative process, while at the same time prioritizing her mental health in nature. I think this really shows a critical lesson for all artists: the necessity of carving out time for self-care and personal projects to avoid burnout and maintain a healthy balance. I mean, as a working full-time mama that is also trying to balance in my artistry, this spoke so much to me. I think the quiet and supportive environment of a residency gave ChiChai the chance to put herself and her creative process first. It allowed her to just breathe and experiment and go back to things that she loves. And I think this really drives home for me because making time for self-care and personal projects, it's hard. It's a challenge, but it's also crucial to avoid burnout, keep a healthy balance in your mental health, and it's a great reminder of how important it is for artists to find spaces, time, and opportunities where they can focus on creating art for themselves. I mean, I reflect back on my conversation with Kevin Kamya, that lesson, and now this conversation with ChiChai. And I think both of those lessons were whether you're a corporate artist working in the entertainment industry or a community artist, teaching artists, creating public murals and teaching for the community, taking time to create just for the sake of creating is vital. And making something without the expectation of it being perfect or scrutinized or even sellable is incredibly freeing and fulfilling. So full disclosure, I got COVID this week. I've been in quarantine for about 5 days now. I missed my vacation. I canceled my vacation and I just stayed home while everyone was off doing their barbecues and everything for 4th of July. And all I did was binge. I binged a lot of documentaries, and one of them was the Hulu documentary on Frida Kahlo. I love this documentary, not only because I'm a huge fan of Frida Kahlo, but because it took her own words from her own diaries and told her story. ChiChai's conversation reminded me so much of this documentary I just watched. Because despite the physical and emotional pain Frida endured her whole life, her art was a true expression of her inner world. It was unfiltered and deeply personal. Frida Kahlo's work wasn't created to fit any commercial mold. It was an honest reflection of her experiences, her emotions, and the world around her. And this authenticity is what makes her art and ChiChai's art so powerful and timeless. I think in those moments of pure creation, we as creatives reconnect with this essence, this spirit, even our ancestors, of why we became artists in the first place. It's about the joy. It's about the exploration, and it's about the personal expression that can't be confined by commercial demands or external opinions. By allowing ourselves this freedom, we not only nurture our own souls, but we breathe new life and authenticity into our work. I think Frida Kahlo's legacy and ChiChai's artwork and her time in Iceland reminds me so much to cherish these moments of unrestrained creativity and remember that the most profound art often springs from the heart, unburdened by expectations, and allowing ourselves to just create. Like Kahlo and ChiChai, we too can find liberation and fulfillment in creating art that is truly our own. You can find more information on ChiChai at chi-chai.co. And folks can also drop a note in her contact form to subscribe to all of her newsletter info. Cultural Cultivators is hosted by me, Nicole Saliver. You can follow me at Kindred Kapwa or follow us at cultural.cultivators, cultivators with a K, on Instagram. The podcast is co-produced by John Reyes, Kindred Kapwa, and Balay Kreative, and it is a product of Cultivate Labs. Stay in touch at balaykreative.org.